best day that we've had since the TT started here last week. It's been absolutely amazing. Hope you enjoyed your time watching all the racing and the action too. I've got a great lineup for this afternoon. It's going to be a busy show. We've got Danny Horn on later, who's going to be talking about what it's like to be a crew chief here at the Isle of Man TT for Ivan Linton. I've also got the fastest lady on the Isle of Man TT course and also Southern 100, Carolyn Sells, is going to be joining me in the studio. And I also got a couple of spectators that are going to be joining me live in the studio as well. Something else that's going to be coming up after 2 o'clock is a presentation of the Susan Jenness Trophy, and that's from the TT Supporters Club. So Estelle LeBlanc and Melanie Farnier are going to be joining me live on air here at Manx Radio TT at the grandstand. But I have the one and only. He was born 24th of February 1953. He's otherwise known as Stavros. It is Steve Parrish that's joined me now in the studio, former motorcycle and truck racer, now a motorsport commentator, speaker and all-round entertainer. It is great to have you here, and before we go any further, I know myself, including many other people, really surprised to not see you in the ITV4 lineup, and we have to talk about that, Stavros.
Yeah, I guess we do. Actually, I'm surprised as well, actually. It was kind of, I knew there was lots of negotiations. It was going out to tender to put the show together this year for ITV4, and Greenlight ended up with it, who I've been working with 2 weeks ago at the Northwest 200. But then I had a note to say I wasn't required. So yeah, I have to say I'm rather disappointed. I love the Isle of Man. I've been passionate about it for many years. And it just seems rather strange. I'm not sort of saying I don't like it, but I've been at Kurt Michael having a barbecue and a few beers watching there. I've been to Union Mills, I've been to Harry's Garden and places like that, which I normally wouldn't do. But it just seems rather strange that I'm not flat out working. I can't believe it. You know, when you think it's like having a sickie, but I'm not having a sickie. So I am rather disappointed, but I'd like to be back one day because I love the TT.
I know, I follow you on Twitter and seen that you've been doing some commentating as well around the course with the racing going on. But the spectators around, what a joy for them that is.
Yeah, again, places where I haven't been before, and obviously it's so easy nowadays just with your phone to just pick it up and have a shot of what's going on out there. And again, I've been surprised how many people have been watching that. So that side of it has been very interesting, but I still can't get over the fact that I don't have to get up at like 8 o'clock in the morning and rush off to work and meet the team, because that's also part of the fun here at the Isle of Man. And I'm sure all the guys down at Greenlight are doing that. It's, you gel together, and I'm missing James Whitham. Sadly, James, he was also expecting to be here for this event, but when that didn't happen, he's away having some more therapy, chemo and bits and pieces. He's having stem cell replacement, and he's moved it all forward to have it done this week or this next fortnight, because he had a spare fortnight, a bit like myself. But I have been here doing my book, so that's also kept me busy.
There are a lot of people that are missing your smiles around the course, and especially Jamie Whitham, and I'm glad that you're able to update us on Jamie's progress with the treatment that he's having.
Yeah, Jamie is one of the toughest guys and positive men I've ever come across in my life, a gritty Yorkshire man, and he's unfortunately got this Hodgkinson's lymphoma that came 22 years later than when he first had it. He's been battling away with the chemo, and a lot of people will have seen him on TV. He looks as good as gold, feels as fit as he can be, goes out trials riding with all the other guys, but he's still got to battle it, and he's away now having kind of what I call the belt and braces. Hopefully, if the stem cell treatment goes okay, then he should be clear from it, and we'd welcome him back here another year possibly.
He's still involved with BSB, and also I've been seeing that he's still been doing his track days as well.
Yeah, he does, very much so. Jamie Whitham track days, which he does a lot at Anglesey and down at Mallory and Cadwell and places like that, helped by a load of his mates. So we're all, if James needs any help, there's lots of people around that would help out, because he is such a nice guy. And it just seems a bit odd not to be stood with Craig and James and Steve Plater and Cameron down at the coffee shop in the mornings and getting all the rounds of coffee, and in fact the banter and the jokes that used to go on as well. So I've saved up loads of jokes this year, and I don't need them now.
The amount of coffee that you guys drink, I think the coffee shop owners are also kind of disappointed too.
Quite possibly, but normally we'd go to Conrod's anyway, of course, wouldn't we?
Of course, good plug. Good one. Okay, let's just think about and look at your past then, because for anyone that doesn't know you, and I'm sure there isn't that many, with regards to your background, your first race was in 1977 at the Venezuelan Grand Prix, and your last race was 1985 at the British Grand Prix. Just tell me briefly about your career in racing.
It's been a wild, wild ride. My first race actually was a bit before 77 club racing and amateur racing, but you're right, my first sort of proper professional race was 77 Venezuelan Grand Prix, and I was this sort of green kid that had got pictures of Giacomo Agostini and Barry Sheene on my workshop walls and everything else, and then all of a sudden I am thrust into being teammates to Barry Sheene and flying off, first time in an aeroplane was to the Venezuelan Grand Prix in 1977. So talk about dropped in at the deep end, but it was a wild, unbelievable ride, and that's how it was in the 70s. You've got to say it was sort of sex, drugs and rock and roll, and it was just that's the way it was, and the sun seemed to shine an awful lot, and we had lots of parties and lots of fun, loads of camaraderie and loads of giggles, and it was back in the days when you could have a bit of a giggle and a laugh, and all the riders stayed in the same hotels, and we travelled together and drove trucks and caravans around Europe and everything else like that, and it went on, and I say my proudest moment is I'm now celebrating my 43rd year without a proper job. And from that period on I have lived and loved the life of motorcycling, whether it be riding, running a team, commentary, presenting, mad tour shows. You know, everything in my life revolves around motorcycling, apart from a short period of racing trucks. So I had 10 years of doing that. So I've had a wonderful time, and fortunately still kind of here mostly all together. I've got a few dodgy knees and broken collarbones and bits and pieces and stuff like that, but I have been a very lucky man.
And also winning a few titles along the way as well, because you won the ACU solo title in the British Motorcycle Championship in 1976 at the age of just 22, and a few more as well, but you're probably going to be quite humble about those.
I guess. I mean, my best year in Grand Prix was 77. I peaked rather early, but it was the year I had my best bikes with Barry. I rode his bikes from 76, his World Championship winning bike, and I got that. And then I got fired at the end of 77 because I crashed while leading the British Grand Prix, so rightly so. And then the lovely George Harrison from the Beatles came along and gave me a whole load of money to go racing, which was also great. Then Suzuki's re-employed me. I then won the British Shell Sport Championship, beating Barry Sheene. Actually, it's probably my biggest claim to fame. And then Super Stock Championship, I got second in that to Mick Grant, who I've just seen walking around in the paddock here. I had to give him one of my books because obviously being a Yorkshireman he wouldn't want to buy one, but he is in the book, so in fairness it's fair enough. And yeah, it's been a great career. Lots of broken bones and bits and pieces you get, but you talk to any rider, whether it be John McGuinness or Hutchie, wouldn't have you don't look forward to those incidents and accidents, but the peaks and troughs, and generally the peaks outnumber the troughs, and so you look back on it and think it's all part of life-rich tapestry, I guess you could say. So yeah, very lucky person, and still here to tell the story as well.
Also managed a team as well for Yamaha.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, for 5 years I had the Loctite Yamaha team. I got involved with Loctite when I was a rider, and they continued supporting me. And I had some great riders out there. Terry Reimer, Rob McElney won a lot of British championships for me. Keith Hewin, Trevor Nation, guys like that I know Trevor Nation's on the island somewhere watching. He'll be in a hedgerow somewhere watching what was going on. So yeah, that was also a testing time, because when you're a team manager, when everything goes right, you're brilliant. When everything goes wrong, you're rubbish. So it's kind of one of those things. And generally, it's the riders that get the accolades when it goes right. But again, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I am actually quite an organised person, although I might be seen as a buffoon and a clown. I'm a relatively organised person, and it was very much, it was a good part of my life. I enjoyed that. But then when truck racing turned up, I couldn't refuse racing again.
Let's talk about the truck racing career, because perhaps there are a few people that don't know that. I mean, you had a really successful career racing trucks.
Possibly more successful than bikes. I won 5 world championships for Mercedes-Benz through that period of sort of mid-80s, late 80s through to 2001. And again, what was nice about it, I didn't keep waking up in strange hospitals wondering who I was, because it was slightly safer, of course, than racing motorcycles. So it was a great period of my life as well, very successful, and again, it enabled me to carry on racing to fairly ripe old age, actually. I don't know what I would have been, nearly 50 years old when I quit truck racing. So yeah, again, very exciting. But the other thing that always makes me laugh, Steve Parrish, there is a famous football team manager, the guy that owns Crystal Palace, and I get emails constantly, my seat's not comfortable, I've bought a season ticket and stuff like that, and I just email everyone back, so no, you can use the director's box this weekend. So there must be a massive queuing up there thinking that they got the Steve Parrish from Crystal Palace, but they haven't.
That's really funny you say that, because this morning I do spend some time doing a little bit of research, even though I do know you, Stavros. You do your kind of research on your guests coming on, and I kept kept on finding stuff from Steve Parrish, which is the other Steve Parrish, but also I was questioning how I spelt Parrish. So actually, on our Manx Radio TT Facebook page, I think I changed your surname 3 or 4 times, thinking, is it with a double R or with a single R?
It's the double R, which is obviously the posh Parrish. You know, it's not the common single R Parrish. But and I know Steve Parrish, the other one, and he did a bit of Porsche car racing, but he wasn't hugely successful. And I kept getting emails going, "You're not driving that Porsche very well, are you?" So he's got me back a little bit like that. But it's it's been a wild roller coaster ride for me, and every day I get up thinking how lucky I am because I still get to do great things. I have to go back, unfortunately, tomorrow to go to another event, and then at the weekend I'm in Belfast for the book festival out there, and then I'm off down to do an event down in Mallorca and things like that. So I'm still living the dream, as you are, Jo.
Oh, you know what? It's the best job in the world, isn't it? At times, it really, really is. It's also the hardest job at times as well. And we are going to come on definitely to talk about Parrish Times just shortly. But again, I mean, fantastic. You're in the Guinness World Book of Records as well. Just talk me through why and how and what happened there.
Another part of sort of the serendipity of life, I was racing cars at the time. I did some car racing in between the bikes and the trucks and everything else. And I was driving for Caterham Cars, and they decided they want to go for a world record who could drive the fastest backwards. And they sort of thought, who's the stupidest, maddest person we know at the time? Phone goes, and it was a guy called Andy Noble from Caterham Cars saying, would you ever go at breaking the world reversing record, which I think stood at 80 miles an hour or something like that. Yeah, no problem whatsoever. And Caterham's build some of their cars with motorcycle engines, like the big Hayabusa Suzuki engines and FJ 1200 Yamaha engines. But of course, motorcycles don't have reverse gears. So what they do is they make a transfer box that reverses first gear. So you put it in first gear, move another lever, and you've got a reverse. So what they did, they took the lock out, so the transfer box worked in first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth gear. We went to Buntingthorpe. They strapped me in, and you couldn't turn around because there wasn't enough room. So I had to use my mirrors. Being a trucker, of course, I would be used to my big mirrors, and that's what we did. We did about 100 miles an hour in reverse, and everyone said, you must be nuts. But I kind of worked it out that if it all went horribly wrong, what was going to happen? I was going to end up going forwards. My spin would take me forward. So we did it, and we got in the Guinness Book of Records, and I think it still probably stands.
Congratulations for that. Let's just bring everyone up to date with what you are doing at the moment. You mentioned, of course, you are doing more commentary, and I did watch the brilliant programme that was on air not that long ago, Snowquake, where we saw Knight, our very own David Knight, Neil Hodgson, and also Peter Hickman on the show as well. What was that like as an experience? Pretty crazy, I imagine.
Yeah, wild again, but it was one of those events, and I think that's the beauty of Snowquake and Dirtquake for that matter. It's grassroots stuff again, and everyone gets to work together and enjoy the whole event together. It's not all sort of segregated. You know, I love motorcycle racing and Grand Prix, but it's so clinical. No, the teams don't stop in the same hotels, and you can't be seen in the wrong hospitality. And you go to something like here, the TT, Snowquake, Dirtquake, all that. Everyone gets together. They're all round the beer tent afterwards talking about the stories, and it's just grassroots stuff and not so commercialised. So it's absolutely brilliant, and I'm looking forward to the next one, which is at the Essex Arena later in the year.
It is great to have Steve Parrish here, and we're going to take a break shortly, and after the break we are going to be talking. The reason why Steve is over here is his performance this evening at the Gaiety and also his book Parrish Times, and we're going to be finding out just a little bit more about why he's known as a notorious practical joker as well. We'll be back with you shortly.